it in the same way we did it before. But anyway, so My Last Days was a documentary series where we set out to try to, again, inspire people.
I'm so sorry. I have an issue with my face. It says it all. And honestly, it reflects how I feel about certain things. For instance, I just really hate flowers. You hate flowers? Yes, I do. Oh, okay. It's not that I don't appreciate beauty, but I'd much rather receive something that's alive, thriving, and growing, rather than something that's already on its way to dying. Flowers, to me, create unnecessary work, and I end up feeling burdened by them instead of uplifted. But that's just my personal perspective. I know many people love them, but I find flower shops inherently depressing. The smell, the colors, the way they're displayed, it all just feels sad to me. I do wish people luck with them, and I know my view is unusual, but it's honest. I agree with anyone who also finds them a little melancholic. While flowers are undeniably beautiful, their beauty feels fleeting and almost ridiculous in the grand scheme of things, and it doesn't resonate with me the way it does for others. Hi besties, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to discuss some revelations involving Jenny Slate and Justin Baldoni. Apparently, Jenny had quite a bit to say about him, which came out in recent depositions. These depositions had been leaked and then sealed, so the information is sensitive, but some of the details have been made public. During questioning, Jaime was asked to respond to a text message Jenny had sent, and in that message, Jenny expressed just how disturbing and uncomfortable she found the shoot. She admitted that she was not alone in this feeling. There were many who felt the same way. She further revealed that both she and Blake had formally complained to Sony, and that Sony had agreed with their concerns. Jenny did not hold back, calling Justin a false ally and explaining that she was unwilling to participate in anything that would promote the image he was cultivating as a male feminist. She went so far as to say that she had no words to describe what a fraud she believed he to be. This message was sent to her team during the production of the film, reflecting the level of frustration she felt at the time. Interestingly, it was also revealed that a single comment Justin had made about her wardrobe being sexy did not actually offend her. Jenny clarified that she did not interpret the comment as sexual attraction or an attempt at flirting. Rather, she was disappointed in the situation as a whole. In her text, she emphasized, "Blake and I have both complained, and Sony agrees," which to me reads like a deliberate attempt to assert authority and build alliances. It seems like a strategic move, naming names and signaling that her perspective had institutional support. However, it's important to note that who knows what anyone truly believed. Text messages suggest that Jenny didn't actually like Blake very much, and some of her testimony doesn't perfectly align with Blake's claims that the birth scene was offensive. Overall, this paints a complicated picture of behind-the-scenes tensions, professional disagreements, and differing personal perceptions that influenced how everyone experienced the production. In fact, when it came to the conflict that occurred between Alex Sachs and Justin Baldoni, some people clearly took Justin's side. The situation happened on a set where tensions arose because two women decided that the set should focus exclusively on women. It was going to be all about girl power. The only perceived obstacle to this vision was a man who followed a faith originating in Iran. This faith is relatively small and loosely connected to Judaism, and it's considered incredibly progressive in its place of origin, especially when you consider that most Iranian women there are fully covered and have strict restrictions on their freedoms. This faith, which has followers in the United States, promotes ideas like women being educated, allowed to work, and fully participate in society. It emphasizes the family unit and encourages equality between men and women. Now, this isn't exactly the same as feminism as it's commonly understood in the US, but it doesn't mean that someone practicing it cannot be an ally to women. Unfortunately, in this case, it seems that people were unwilling to hear what Justin had to say. They either expected him to fit into a mold he didn't naturally occupy, or misinterpreted his faith, even going so far as to label it a cult. Regardless of personal opinions or judgments, Justin Baldoni had a mission. He grew up in a certain environment, and his goal was to express himself in a way that also allowed other men to express themselves. He was never exactly a feminist in the strict sense. Rather, his work focused on discussing the other side of the manosphere and exploring how men can engage more thoughtfully in gender equality. Watching his old podcasts makes this clear. He talks about men, how they can be kinder to women, and how they can be better allies. At the same time, he acknowledges his own imperfections and doesn't claim to have all the answers. The larger point here is important. If society doesn't allow men the space to engage in these conversations publicly and immediately labels them as frauds or false allies, how can we genuinely include men in the pursuit of equality for women? Participation, understanding, and open dialogue are essential if the goal is to create a world where men and women can collaborate in meaningful ways toward fairness and mutual respect. Men have to be part of with conversation about gender equality. We can't just exclude them simply because we're women. In this case, Jenny and Blake clearly wanted the film to focus on women's perspectives. They wanted to be the ones telling the story and to align other women with their vision. From Blake's perspective, someone like Jenny, who had been working tirelessly in Hollywood for years and finally got a big break, naturally aligned herself with the power structure rather than those considered nobodies. It's a dynamic that often happens in entertainment. When you finally reach a moment of influence, you tend to gravitate toward others in positions of authority. What's striking about the depositions is that Justin was asked if Jenny ever directly told him she felt uncomfortable or if she had a conversation with him about it, and the answer was no. Instead of addressing him directly and saying something like, "I feel this crossed a boundary," Jenny was talking about him behind his back. This highlights a major communication breakdown on set. Rather than confronting issues head-on, Jenny and Blake seem to prefer commiserating with each other. It's reminiscent of the social dynamics many people remember from high school when you're upset with someone. There's often a mean girl ring that tries to get you on their side, listing all the reasons why another person is bad. Once you align yourself with them, it feels validating you have an ally who agrees with your perspective. That's essentially how things unfolded on this set. Instead of addressing Justin directly, Jenny and Blake reinforced each other's frustrations, creating a cycle of gossip and negativity. Blake, who has a history of trying to influence opinions and turn people against each other, played a key role in this dynamic. Jenny, meanwhile, appeared to be a willing participant. The problem with this approach is obvious. If you have an issue with someone but never communicate it directly, how can they adjust or improve their behavior? Without direct conversation, no resolution is possible. Jenny reportedly took issue with what she considered too many hugs on set, and she was apparently irritated that Justin would go outside and interact with fans when she didn't want to. These grievances were relayed indirectly rather than addressed with him face-to-face. I recall reports of her having lunch with Miss Slate, during which several of these complaints were discussed. For example, Jenny had been upset that a recording she made during pre-production with her and Blake had not been appreciated or acknowledged. Altogether, this paints a picture of a toxic communication environment on set, rather than fostering openness, direct feedback, or collaboration. The approach taken by Jenny and Blake created tension and reinforced negative dynamics. Issues that could have been resolved through honest conversation became sources of frustration, gossip, and misinterpretation, which only compounded the overall difficulties on the set. Jenny had not appreciated a comment I had made on set regarding her wardrobe, something she was wearing, and she also reportedly didn't like that I was interacting with fans outside. During filming, there were a lot of fans waiting, and on certain breaks, I would go out to greet them, say hello, thank them, and acknowledge their support. From what I understand, Jenny expressed to Miss Sachs that she didn't want to be asked to do the same because she considered herself a private person. Essentially, she wanted to avoid interacting with fans entirely, and she didn't want to be prompted to engage with them. I also heard from others, possibly Alex or someone else on the set, that she felt the environment was too huggy or overly comfortable. The word huggy stuck with me because it was used repeatedly to describe her discomfort. Importantly, Miss Slate never approached me directly to express any of these feelings. Instead, the frustrations were shared indirectly, creating a situation where small grievances snowballed into larger issues. This is a classic dynamic in what some might call a mean girl group. You start compiling lists of every little thing that irritates you about someone and then begin rationalizing them in ways that make them feel justified. For example, complaints emerged like, "I don't like that he goes outside and interacts with fans who have been waiting all day," or "I don't like that he is polite, waves, and thanks the fans, because I don't want to have to do that myself." What that ultimately tells me is that Jenny didn't want people to think she was rude just because she didn't want to say hi. She didn't want to put in the effort to be polite or grateful to the fans, people who ultimately were a big part of making her opportunities possible. She valued her privacy above engaging with the people who contributed to the success of the production and, by extension, her career. Jenny and Blake, rather than addressing issues directly, created lists and rationalized their frustrations, which fed into a kind of echo chamber of toxic feminism on set. Miss Slate never came to me personally with her concerns, which left me feeling frustrated and wanting to apologize for any perceived offense. Meanwhile, the lists of grievances grew, with small or even neutral actions being interpreted as personal offenses. Essentially, complaints that were minor or non-problematic became items on a list of reasons to be upset, escalating tension unnecessarily and creating an environment that was far more toxic than it needed to be. Jenny's attitude seemed to be, "I don't want to do it, so don't make me do it." According to Miss Janetti, she had asked Jenny if she wanted to file a report or have any action taken regarding her grievances, but Jenny declined. During that same call, Miss Janetti also clarified that when Jenny mentioned my wardrobe comment, which included the word sexy, she was asked whether she felt it was sexual or if I was hitting on her. Jenny responded that it was not sexual. She simply didn't appreciate the comment. From what I understand, Jenny also didn't appreciate the way Jaime or Mr. Heath had offered to help cover her additional housing costs. While discussing the sanctity of motherhood, Jaime had offered to pay a $15,000 security deposit so she could move to a safer place for herself and her child. I wasn't there for these conversations, but this is how I remember Miss Janetti explaining it. What seems to have happened is that Blake created a sort of vacuum on set, a space where people felt safe to vent their frustrations about colleagues and leadership. If you wanted to get people on your side, like Blake did, you allowed them to complain, validated their feelings, and reinforced the idea that someone else was gross or not an ally. Jenny, rather than going directly to Justin to discuss her concerns, chose to align herself with Blake and participate in this echo chamber. The fact that neither Jenny nor Blake addressed issues directly with Justin or with each other in a constructive way shows that their goal wasn't to solve problems. They simply wanted to complain, gather support, and reinforce their own perspectives. That's a classic example of toxic feminism or toxic mean girl behavior. How can someone expect another person to improve if they never communicate their concerns? In this dynamic, improvement wasn't the goal. Making someone disappear from their line of sight was. Instead of being grateful for the opportunity to work on a film that was funded and supported by major backers like Wayfair, Jenny chose to side with Blake. Blake provided her the space to step into the role of the mean girl, which she seemed eager to embrace. Adding Alex Sachs into the mix complicated things further. Alex, in her desire for more power and control on the film, acted as a point of contact for complaints but also intentionally excluded Jaime and Justin from these conversations because she felt they had too much authority. By removing them from the loop, she created a vacuum in communication, leaving the very people who needed to know the concerns completely unaware. This combination of behaviors, the echo chamber created by Blake, Jenny's willingness to participate, and Alex's exclusion of leadership produced an environment where grievances were amplified, misunderstandings festered, and the potential for resolution was almost non-existent. Everyone was operating with incomplete information. Alliances were being formed strategically rather than collaboratively, and the result was a toxic, confusing set dynamic where communication broke down entirely. During her deposition, Jenny relayed a story about Justin allegedly yelling at her while on the director's chair, which left her upset enough to walk off set. Jaime was asked about this incident during his deposition and provided some important context. According to him, Justin was under significant time constraints and a lot of pressure to capture the scene within a certain time frame. On a film set, especially with many people involved, stress levels naturally rise, and differing opinions can intensify tension. Jaime explained that there were new assistant directors at D's on set, and some disgruntled production assistants PA who were loyal to the previous ADs had been let go. The remaining team had to adjust to the new ADs, which created additional challenges. Justin, as the director, was managing these dynamics while simultaneously trying to ensure the scene was shot correctly. Jaime described repeatedly going in to remind him, "Dude, we need to wrap this up." But Justin had not yet captured the scene to his satisfaction, which is his prerogative as the director. At one point, Justin came out to speak with Jaime, Alex, and others. He was very passionate about needing to get the scene right. And when Alex commented, though Jaime doesn't recall exactly what Jaime doesn't, responded firmly, "Alex, I'm the director. I need to get this." He said this in a raised voice, but Jaime clarified that it wasn't aggressive. It was assertive. He made a motion with the director's chair, which was made of flappy material, and the sound of it flapping added emphasis. But it was not an act of aggression. It was simply him asserting his authority as the director and trying to move the production forward. The scene being filmed was particularly intense, involving conflict between characters, which added to the urgency. Justin had to quickly return to the set to continue filming. Afterward, Alex commented, "Did you see what he just did?" And Angie responded, "He's not wrong." Alex insisted, "Yeah, but you just saw he yelled at me." While Angie reminded her that Justin was simply doing his job as the director, Alex then warned that if something like that happened again, she would walk off set. This led to further tension between her and Angie, as Angie questioned why Alex was so upset when Justin was only trying to do his job. Overall, Jaime's testimony indicates that while Jenny perceived the incident as rageful, those present on set, including production staff and other witnesses, would likely not describe it that way. In Jaime's view, the incident has been somewhat exaggerated in recollection. Justin's tone and actions were firm and direct, but they were appropriate given the pressures and responsibilities of directing a complex, high-stakes scene. Miss Sachs also testified that I didn't say anything at the time of the incident that aligns with my memory. At the moment, Alex and Angie were discussing what had happened, and Alex eventually left out the back door. Shortly afterward, I went to check on her, not exactly following, but I wanted to see how she was doing because she was clearly upset. I don't remember the specifics of our conversation, but I recall walking with her briefly and trying to help her feel better. At the same time, Justin was under immense pressure. The scene needed to be filmed that day, back on set between picketing disruptions, and the production had strict budget and schedule constraints. Justin, as the director, has the authority to decide whether the scene is captured in the way he envisions. High-stress situations like this naturally create tension. Anyone who's worked under tight deadlines knows how emotions can run high. Yelling, frustration, and quick reactions are unfortunately part of trying to get work done efficiently. On top of that, Blake firing the assistant directors caused chaos among the remaining ADs and creating more tension on set. Justin was juggling all of this while managing picket lines, ensuring the scene was completed on time, coordinating a large team with differing opinions, and also performing as an actor in some scenes. It was a high-pressure environment with many moving parts, and moments of stress were inevitable. Imagine if people extended a little grace. If Alex had said, "You know what, I overreacted there. I was being too sensitive. I took it personally," or even recognized that Justin was under extreme pressure, the tension might have eased, but instead, the incident became amplified in memory and retold in a way that painted it as aggressive or rageful. Justin was likely trying to manage multiple things at once and had questions about Alex's motives because she was already working behind the scenes to try to get Jaime removed from the set, telling Angie that Jaime should be fired, and expressing a desire for a different director. In situations like this, when stress, deadlines, interpersonal conflicts, and high stakes collide, misunderstandings can escalate quickly. Context is everything. What may feel like aggression in the moment may actually be someone asserting authority under pressure, while trying to get a complex project completed efficiently. This particular scene was filmed after Angie had essentially declared, "We need to get Jaime off set. We need to fire him as director." And now, in that moment, anyone would expect Justin to be perfectly calm and accommodating, especially when he knows that some of the people around him are actively talking about him, trying to get him removed, and undermining him at every turn. The behavior on set was manipulative, strategic, and frankly, toxic. These women were acting in bad faith, plotting, triangulating, and then playing the victim when Justin responded naturally to the pressure. It was a classic Mean Girls environment. To be clear, Hollywood is full of incredible women. There are amazing creatives, talented producers, and directors who collaborate respectfully with their male peers every single day. This was not one of those sets. This was a cast and crew environment that Blake deliberately manipulated to her advantage. She triangulated men against women, Sony against Wayfair, and the cast against Justin to consolidate her influence. She methodically brought people like Alex and Jenny onto her side, creating an echo chamber where grievances were amplified, issues were fabricated, and no direct communication was encouraged. Instead of addressing problems directly or working toward solutions, the focus was on personal power, clout, and undermining others. Conflicts that could have been resolved were instead exaggerated, and in the end, it painted all the women involved in a very negative light. This kind of behavior is discouraging, and it's the reason some people, myself included, feel frustrated with how women sometimes act in competitive professional environments. Rather than fostering teamwork or collaboration, the energy was used to manipulate, dominate, and elevate themselves at the expense of others, including the success of the project itself. As I hear the testimonies from Justin and Jaime, it's shocking to think that these dynamics escalated into a federal lawsuit. The lack of professionalism, the triangulation, and the personal agendas on set make the whole situation feel unnecessarily dramatic and, frankly, embarrassing. So, what do you think about all of this? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye best.